I dyed my hair. This is what it was before it kind of faded out. I don't know if you can see some of the remainders left, but I'm not grey anymore. I'm now back to jade or whatever the colour was, emerald, whatever. Today I will be doing my review on Porn Hearts by Van der Graaf Generator. This one actually took me quite a while because in their music so much was going on at the same time while I was writing, so I was like, so if I've missed something out that you probably wanted me to talk about or I should have been talking about, that is wise, because there was so much going on while I was writing, and I'm not exactly a quick writer either. I'm not slow, but I'm not fast. I'm like that middle ground. So I think that I did a pretty good review. I mean, I think the last song on the album, I think I wrote a whole essay worth of material for the video just for that final song. I thought that was, I'll get into that while I'm reviewing, but I'm not wearing a band shirt today. It happens once every so often that I run out of shirts to wear, so I'm wearing a plain white t-shirt today. So let's just get on with the video. So as I said, I will be reviewing Porn Hearts by Van der Graaf Generator. As with the other two, do I own a copy of this on vinyl? I do. Right here, beautiful album cover. This is not a reissue, it's quite an old copy that we found on Discogs. It was released in 1971. A lot of people believe that 1971 was one of the golden years of music because so many brilliant albums came out in 1971, not just in progressive rock, but just in music in general. I mean, from my musical knowledge, I know plenty of albums that were released in 1971, classics that were released in 1971, but that's up for debate whether or not that's the best year of music or not. I don't think it is, but that's for another video. That's actually a good idea for a video. Best years in music. Right, let's continue. So on my copy of this album, there's only 3 tracks. They're all above the 10-minute mark, so I did write quite a lot for each track because the longer the track, the more there is to digest and therefore more to put out into the review. So this is a group that I hadn't listened to much of before this review. I'd listened to God Bluff before, but I hadn't really listened to this album that much. When I did listen to it, I had to buy it. Yeah, I loved it that much, and you'll probably see that through me talking about it, is that I think that this was an absolutely fantastic record upon first listen, and usually first listen loves are very rare. You know, I rarely come across an album that I love straight off the bat. This one I loved straight off the bat. I mean, it was just so intriguing. It pulls you in, reels you back out, and then pulls you back in, and you'll see that again throughout my review. So this may or may not be a longer one. I'm not going to say for sure because that last track is very long. Into the track breakdowns now. So the first track on the album is Lemmings, in parentheses including Cog. Now this one was about 11 minutes long. I love how prog songs fade in because they always fade in very majestically, very well, and this one worked very, very well. I got a bit jump scared by the introduction of the vocal track because the style of vocals of the singer, Peter Hamill, is very different to things that I've heard in the past. Obviously I've listened to broad ranges of vocals, broad, you know, styles of vocals, pitches, all that. It gave me a bit of a jump scare, but that's not in any way a bad thing. I think that it's a great thing because I like music that can make you feel a certain emotion. I love irregular chord progressions shown through this in this intro as well, very jazz orientated, which will be an ongoing theme throughout this review. Very much jazz orientated, this first intro to the song, and that's obviously a very typical thing of prog, you know, being odd and having the jazz influence, which I mentioned in my Canterbury Scene video. Not just the Canterbury Scene are influenced by jazz, but so many other prog bands too. I like the use of reverb on the vocal track as well. Reverb on vocal tracks always make a difference. And as I said, the vocal variety is very interesting throughout this entire album, not just in this track. It was, you know, it had its moments where it was very prog-esque, very, I mean this in the best possible way, weird, strange, but then you also have the kind of other flip side of the coin, the kind of majestic, beautiful side of it. So I think this vocalist, as I said, Peter Hamel, has a very good vocal variety. I found that this song had quite a lot of Deep Purple influences at times. I think that could just have been the sound of the organ that reminded me of Deep Purple. So around the 5-minute mark of this first track, so it just went from absolute chaos, in the best way, chaos, to a very short section of ambience, which I loved. You know, this is what I meant by it kind of reels you out and then pulls you back in, because once the kind of softer moments of the track were going through, I was like, oh, this is very nice, and then suddenly explodes back into this majestic incredibleness that is progressive rock. As I said in my previous videos, I do love a good change in tempo. I like when bands switch up the tempo a little bit, and obviously with a song that's probably 10+ minutes, as well as this track, the next track, and the final track, to have that variety makes for a more interesting song, in my opinion, but it has to be done well, and in this album it was done very well. I like the use of both acoustic grand piano and keyboard. I love that in prog as well, because I played piano for a really long time, and being able to refamiliarize myself with the sound of a grand piano always is nostalgic to me. Time signatures, again, the irregularness of the drum patterns were very interesting to me. I thought that I should mention that as well. And the use of the overdubbed vocals as well, on not just, you know, there was different frequencies. You had the high frequency vocals and the lower frequency vocals overdubbed on top of each other, which worked very well in this particular track. As I said, clear jazz influence in this track with the irregular chord progressions and notes being played throughout. I love a good flute as well in prog. You know, I think if a prog band has someone who can play the flute, I think that should be utilised. Especially with bands like Jethro Tull and Genesis that use the flute quite often. I think that it works very well. Not used as much in this particular album, but I still thought that it was a great addition to the album. And the way the song ended was very perfect. I loved it, how it ended quietly and then ended very dramatically, and had that kind of 4 or 5 seconds of silence leading into the next track. So that was the first track. That's only the first track, and I've been going off for a long time. So the next track is Man-Erg, I think that's how it's pronounced. And this starts off with a very beautiful piano intro and a very nice chord progression throughout that section, and just beautifully played. I thought that this showed off the non-chaotic side of Peter Hamel's vocal range, because I think if you're able to adapt your voice from something very proggy, something very jazzy inspired, something very chaotic, into something very kind of calm, very soothing, you're a great vocalist. In my opinion, you don't have to be, you know, great as in skilled. I'm not saying that he isn't skilled, he's clearly a very skilled vocalist, but if you have that ability to change your vocal for different scenarios of music, then you're a great vocalist. So that was shown throughout this song and the next one, which I'll get on to. I love the grooves, the drum grooves in this song quite a lot as well. I love good prog drums, are always great. And the organ is a nice touch as well. So, I like the chaoticness of this song as well, and how the use of delay on vocals, because I think that can work very well in prog. I think my favourite vocal effect in prog is either echo or reverb, and delay always is something that I gotta mention, because it's something that, for me, kind of getting started back into prog again is quite rare. That's what I've seen. Or not rare, but quite unseen, unheard. What I found with this song is their ability to, I think this was around the 4-minute mark, their ability to slow the tempo down completely and fade into the next section of the track worked very, very well, and I think that that's quite hard to do. As someone who is a musician, being able to just kind of take something that you're doing, you're playing at that point, slowing it down bit by bit, and then fading into a new section of the song. I loved that. And the comeback at the end with the intro piano section was great as well. I liked the kind of, it was like a sandwich, so you had the piano bits either side as the bread, and then the filling was that chaotic prog element, which, incredible. And the use of the flute and the saxophone as well came in the end of that song, and I like the way it ended on a minor key because I am a very big fan of the minor key, and a very grand regal exit. So, on to the very last track of the album. This one's going to be a lot of me talking, so bear with. The name of this piece is A Plague of Lighthouse Keepers. This is a 23-minute long song, and the intro, for me, reminded me of Pink Floyd. Like Ummagumma Pink Floyd. That reminded me of that a lot. And the vocal effect at the beginning was very good as well. So this introduction was very jazz orientated from what I could listen, and it was also very psychedelic at times as well, because it felt quite trippy at some points. And I found the album cover also, just a side note, very trippy as well. Vocal overdubs in this track, I'm talking about the beginning section here. The vocal overdubs were very eerie in my opinion, but in a good way, you know. I like, as I said, vocals tracks, or if music's able to portray a sense of fear or a sense of happiness, sadness, whatever, then it's a good song, or it's a good album in general, because if you're able to bring someone to tears or make someone feel afraid, you're doing something right. You know, if that's what you're conveying, of course, which is probably what's being conveyed in this song, you know, which prog kind of freaks me out at times, but not saying that's a bad thing whatsoever. It makes me feel comfortable. Very good drum work at the beginning of this track, and the use of the flute is very, very, very good in the ambient section of the song as well. Yeah, bear with me, I've got a lot here. I love panning. I love artists that use panning on their tracks, so something that will bounce back and forth throughout my headphones is something that I find very interesting and something that should be picked up on. And the use of the saxophone track was panned back and forth, which gave it that kind of weird psychedelic-y but jazzy influence to it. And there was some ambience behind that, which was very interesting in my opinion, because you had the kind of craziness of the saxophone going blah 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 by the side of my ears, and then just a constant theme of ambience. A very, very good touch. Good fade in of the organ at this point as well. It felt very much like I was at church. You know, church organs, which I do love, and felt very freaky, very creepy, but I loved it. What I noticed throughout this track is that all the mini sections in the track faded in and out very, very well, very effortlessly, very smoothly, and it reminded me quite a lot of King Crimson in a way. So around the 8.5 minute part of the track, the song fades into a kind of organ-based ambient section, and I think that was very nice. I loved that touch, and I liked, I think, again, another theme throughout is the way that Hamill is able to change his vocal style to suit whatever the mood of or atmosphere of the song is. So around the 10.5 minute mark, there was just a kind of nothing but vocal track. I think there was some overdubbing as well, which I thought was very, very, with an echo effect, which I thought was very creepy, and I loved it, and it led into a very good progression and repetition section, which started off with vocals and then faded into no vocals, which I liked a lot because I really liked that section of music. Then during that little section there was also organ overdubbed into it, which added to the chaos of the track, and loved it. I loved that so much. And around the 14-minute mark, there was a section that I really, really liked, and I wasn't quite sure why. I just really liked it quite a lot. I think it's probably to do with the chord progressions working alongside the drums as well, but I just really liked it. Thought I'd throw it out that I really liked that part. I like the change in atmosphere coming towards the end of the track as well. There was some muffled audio tracks as well, which were very effective, exciting, and very interesting. With the vocals on top, it was like rubbing up against a microphone to get that kind of muffled effect, which was very weird, but I loved it. And then another grand piano section, and I've written down here, the grand piano section arises from the mania, and I wanted to point out the use of the lower frequencies on the piano as well, which worked very, very well. And the vocal overdubs closing the album were very good, and I liked how the end of the song made me feel like I had just concluded a very long journey through music, which it was. So, my thoughts and opinions on the album. I really loved it. I had never heard an album like this before, and I loved it so much. And I'm going to point out some things in particular that I loved the most. The ambience was a big part of it, and the way that the group were able to surprise me a lot throughout this listening experience. Things that are like, oh, they've done this, are they going to do something even crazier, which happened, you know. I think, oh, I've seen this, what else am I yet to see? The way that the album was able to execute both a lot of chaos and mania, and also a lot of very nice piano sections of the music. Incredible. Very, very well executed. Excellent musicianship, of course. There wasn't any bad, obviously with a progressive rock band you're not going to have bad musicians, so I just thought that the musicianship on this album, especially the piano playing, was something that I thought was very much noteworthy. The piano parts were my favourite parts, as well as the bass lines. I thought the bass lines were fantastic as well. I don't think I talked much about that, but I mentioned quite a lot about the piano and the organ and the vocals. I loved the guitar and bass work. I actually read that Robert Fripp played on, I think, one of the tracks or a couple of the tracks on this album, so if you're going to get Robert Fripp to do it, it's going to be probably a good record. And of course the vocal tracks were very much spot on, easily adaptable, and it felt like it was effortless. I don't rate things 10 out of 10 sparingly. I, you know, will give some albums maybe like a 7 or an 8 or a 9. This album got a 10 for me because I came out of that experience thinking, I want to re-listen to that. So I gave it a 10 out of 10, which is a very rare score for me. I loved this album. My favourite tracks, all of them, but particularly the opening and closing tracks, which is just the first and third track basically, were my favourites. So yeah, that concludes my review for this week. I believe next week I will be doing a King Crimson album review, so stick around for that. And there will be a video on Friday, which will be my favourite prog epics. So I'm going to come up with some that I really, really love, and there's a lot. So I don't know if it will be a top 10 list, because there'll probably be more than 10. But there will be quite a lot, and a lot of things to discuss on that video. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow, because I've recorded a video, an unboxing video to put out tomorrow, because unboxing videos don't take me very long, so I thought I'd just push one out tomorrow because I got a new box set, as I think some of you saw on my Instagram. But enough of me talking, see you later.